Chapter 19. They all wanted me to sleep on the couch in the parlor by the comfortable oil-burning stove, but I insisted on making my room, as before, on the back porch with its 6 windows looking out on the winter-barren cotton field and the pine woods beyond, leaving all the windows open and stretching my good old sleeping bag on the couch there to sleep the pure sleep of winter nights with my head buried inside the smooth nylon duck-down warmth. After they had gone to bed, I put on my jacket and my earmuff cap and railroad gloves, and over all that my nylon poncho, and strode out in the cotton field moonlight like a shroudy monk. The ground was covered with moonlit frost. The old cemetery down the road gleamed in the frost. The roofs of nearby farmhouses were like white in white panels of snow. I went through the cotton fields, followed by Bob, a big bird dog, and a little Sandy who belonged to the joiners down the road, and a few other stray dogs. All dogs love me, and came to the edge of the forest. In there, the previous spring, I'd worn out a little path going to meditate under our favorite baby pine. The path was still there. My official entrance to the forest was still there, this being 2 evenly spaced young pines making kind of gateposts. I always bowed there and clasped my hands and thanked Avalokitesvara for the privilege of the wood. Then I went in, led moon-white Bob direct to my pine, where my old bed of straw was still at the foot of the tree. I arranged my cape and legs and sat to meditate. The dogs meditated on their paws. We were all absolutely quiet. The entire moony countryside was frosty silent, not even the little tick of rabbits or coons anywhere. An absolute cold, blessed silence. Maybe a dog barking 5 miles away toward Sandy Cross. Just the faintest sound of big trucks rolling out the night on 301. About 12 miles away. And of course the distant occasional diesel, bah, of the Atlantic coastline, passenger, and freight trains going north and south to New York and Florida. A blessed night. I immediately fell into a blank, thoughtless trance wherein it was again revealed to me this thinking has stopped, and I sighed because I didn't have to think anymore, and felt my whole body sink into a blessedness surely to be believed, completely relaxed and at peace with the ephemeral world of dream and dreamer of the dreaming itself. All kinds of thoughts too, like one man practicing kindness in the wilderness is worth all the temples his world pulls, and I reached out and stroked old Bob, who looked at me satisfied. All living and dying things like these dogs, and me coming and going without any duration or self-substance. Oh God, and therefore we can't possibly exist. How strange, how worthy, how good for us. What a horror it would have been if the world was real. Because if the world was real, it would be immortal. My nylon poncho protected me from the cold, like a fitted-on tent, and I stayed a long time sitting cross-legged in the winter midnight woods, about an hour. Then I went back to the house, warmed up by the fire in the living room, while the others slept, then slipped into my bag on the porch and fell asleep. The following night was Christmas Eve, which I spent with a bottle of wine before the TV, enjoying the shows and the midnight mass from the St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, with bishops ministering and doctrines glittering, and congregations, the priests in their lacy snow vestments, before great official altars, not half as great as my straw mat beneath the little pine tree, I figured. Then at midnight, the breathless little parents, my sister and brother-in-law, laying out the presents under the tree, and more gloriful than all the Gloria in Excelsis Dios of Rome Church and all its attendant bishops. For after all, I thought, Augustine was a spade and Francis my idiot brother. My cat Davy suddenly blessed me, sweet cat, with his arrival on my lap. I took out the Bible and read a little St. Paul by the warm stove and the light of the tree. Let him become a fool, that he may become wise. And I thought of good dear Japhy, and wished he was enjoying the Christmas Eve with me. Already are you filled, says St. Paul. Already are you become rich. The saints shall judge the world. Then in a burst of beautiful poetry, more beautiful than all the poetry readings of all the San Francisco Renaissance of time, meats for the belly, and belly for the meats. But God shall bring to naught both it and them. Yep, I thought, you pay through the nose for short-lived shows. That week I was all alone in the house. My mother had to go to New York for a funeral, and the others worked. Every afternoon I went into the piney woods with my dogs, read, studied, meditated in the warm winter southern sun, and came back and made supper for everybody at dusk. Also, I put up a basket and shot baskets every sundown. At night, after they went to bed, back I went to the woods in starlight, or even in rain sometimes with my poncho. The woods received me well. I amused myself writing little Emily Dickinson poems like, "Light a fire, fight a liar. What's the difference in existence?" A watermelon seed produces a need, large and juicy, such an autocracy. Let there be blowing out and bliss forevermore, I prayed, in the woods at night. I kept making newer and better prayers, and more poems like when the snow came. Not oft the holy snow, so soft the holy bow. And at one point I wrote the 4 inevitabilities. 1. Musty books. 2. Uninteresting nature. 3. Dull existence. 4. Blank nirvana. By that boy. Or I wrote, on dull afternoons when neither Buddhism, nor poetry, nor wine, nor solitude, nor basketball would avail my lazy but earnest flesh. Nothing to do, oh pooh, practically blue. One afternoon I watched the ducks in the pig field across the road, and it was Sunday, and the hollering preachers were screaming on the Carolina radio, and I wrote, imagine blessing all living and dying worms in eternity and in the ducks that eat them. There's your Sunday school sermon. In a dream I heard the words, pain, 'tis but a concubine's puff. But in Shakespeare it would say, I, by my faith, that bears a frosty sound. Then suddenly one night, after supper, as I was pacing in the cold, windy darkness of the yard, I felt tremendously depressed and threw myself right on the ground and cried, I'm gonna die, because there was nothing else to do in the cold loneliness of this harsh and hospitable earth. And instantly, the tender bliss of enlightenment was like milk in my eyelids, and I was warm. And I realized that this was the truth Rosie knew now, and all the dead, my dead father and dead brother and dead uncles and cousins and aunts, the truth that is realizable in a dead man's bones and is beyond the tree of Buddha, as well as the cross of Jesus. Believe that the world is an ethereal flower, and you live. I knew this. I also knew that I was the worst bum in the world. The diamond light was in my eyes. My cat meowed at the icebox, anxious to see what all the good dear delight was. I fed him.